She thumps a cane and drinks champagne. She's formidable and judgmental, but we can guarantee that she's a quintessential Lady D, but recognizes great potential. What would Danbury do?
Welcome to What Would Danbury Do, your guide to Julia Quinn's Bridgerton series from A to B. This episode, Hyacinth and Gareth are back for their second epilogue, 22 years into their marriage, and Hyacinth has been hit with the cruelest of all maternal curses. She has a daughter exactly like herself. Don't forget, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook, and join the conversation using the hashtag WWDDpod.
Did you guys ever learn to make sherbet in science?
No. We did blow up sheep's organs with a vacuum cleaner.
Oh, nice.
We made wine.
I don't know who had the worst or the best time out of those three options. I mean, questionably, it could be all of us and none of us.
We had to taste and spit, and we were watched very closely.
And did the teacher take home the leftovers?
Yeah, she did. But we were in, it was to teach us about fermentation or whatever.
I never want to eat anything that is made by the kids in my class or their parents, really. I can't risk it.
Well, that was the thing, really, because we were learning about fermentation, and I don't remember something about changes. And we were supposed to bring in whatever it was that we wanted to make wine out of. So I brought in elderberries because we had a big old elderberry bush right by the front door of the barn. But other kids, somebody brought in nibs. Somebody brought, wait, do you guys know what nibs are?
No.
Oh, it's like licorice, strawberry licorice, but they're really hard. They're quite hard and chewy anyway. So somebody brought in nibs. Somebody tried to make chocolate wine. It was not a good experiment.
I can't imagine that your teacher actually drank the homebrew wine made in a beaker. But the reason I asked is because we were the very last year to be allowed to make sherbet in grade 9 because they realized that it is definitely an OH&S issue and that they should not be letting us cook things in science to eat. But it became this, there was this weird kind of competitive kind of energy in the room to make your sherbet the most acidic and to make it just borderline, and if you could have it be this really sour, really acidy thing that you then ate. If your sherbet wasn't making you cry, you were losing.
But that being said, having taught teenagers, everything becomes a OH&S risk around them, honestly.
Hi, I'm Rudi.
Hi, I'm Kate.
And I'm Adele.
Okay, 2 things. First off the bat. First, I thought it was interesting that Isabella, Hyacinth Mac 2, doesn't look good in jewel tones. She really was leaning into the yellows rather than the blues, and I thought that was unusual with their coloring, particularly because they said later on that she's a strawberry blonde. So, frankly, I just felt like I couldn't trust Isabella's judgment across the board as a 19-year-old with that little understanding of skin tone and what colors are going to set her skin off best.
Maybe that's the Hyacinth of her, where she's a willful to a fault.
Yes, stubborn, obstinate. Yeah.
But those are the colors that Penelope used to have to dress in. So all I'm thinking of is she's going to look a citrus fruit. And then we're carried right back around to the OG Bridgerton 8, but
maybe she wants to wear black.
What if she does want to wear black? Oh, what if Hyacinth has raised a little goth?
She would have, she can't be a goth with strawberry blonde hair. She would have to dye it. She'd have to seek out the henna from the other side of the Thames.
I respect her right to be a goth with strawberry blonde hair.
Goth is, I suppose it's more of an attitude than
Yeah.
an aesthetic. But it's also very much an aesthetic as well.
Yeah, but like surely there are, I mean, I'm not a goth, I don't know how to do it, but like surely there is a way to make it. Like to make
Well,
it.
she could just be emo.
I really think that it was not a thing, but I thought it was really interesting that all of the colors that she didn't want to wear left the colors that Penelope didn't want to wear in Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. And then I thought maybe we should all talk about this project that we've taken on, that I remember that and am able to make that connection, and possibly I need space in my head to think about something other than the Bridgerton colors that they like to wear. Maybe.
So, okay, theory. What if the reason she was leaning towards colors that are not kind of known to suit her, like her tones? What if that's deliberate? Because she clearly doesn't want to actually get married. She's not interested in a season. She's not, like, she's kind of exasperated by this idea of her mum pushing her to get married and to have a debut in the first place. Like, what if it's a deliberate choice in a very, like, the heiress effect Courtney Milan kind of way?
Yeah, it's interesting. Because I don't think that there's anything there that suggests that she doesn't want to be married, but
well, she doesn't.
It's obvious that she wants to travel. She doesn't want to be in London. She wants to be traveling. So, I mean, she's Hyacinth's daughter, so sabotaging herself on the marriage mart is certainly not out of the realm of possibility.
I can see her kind of doing that, like taking on this personal project to be like, well, if we're not allowed to travel, I will sabotage it some other way.
You would think that Hyacinth would be sympathetic to a daughter who wanted to adventure a little bit before marriage.
I actually was really I was kind of disappointed by the kind of mother Hyacinth has turned out to be. Like, I don't like that she has kind of turned into Violet, which, like, Violet is fine, but Violet started as a Kate. Someone that starts as a Hyacinth becoming a Violet is a very...
It's not just smoothing the rough edges, as Gareth says. I guess. It's a bit of
it's fundamentally changing her personality.
Yeah. Maybe Queen got fixated on the idea of, like, this tension or this to and fro she wanted with the daughter and the mother, and it doesn't really fit Hyacinth cleanly.
If you want that kind of tension for someone like Hyacinth, it would be to give her a daughter who is, like, really fastidious and really like solidly conforming to social norms, and just, like, kind of exasperated by the idea of her mother always trying to tell her not, like, trying to encourage her not to.
That would be much more interesting.
Somebody who was demure and who wanted to follow society's rules and didn't want to make waves and
wanted to get married and didn't want to travel and
It's almost like Quinn didn't know how to write a matriarch except Violet. So once all of the women in the stories get to Violet's age, they all turn into Violet because Quinn doesn't know how to write another matriarch.
No, she doesn't.
Because, certainly she writes older characters fine. Like Lady Danbury is different from Violet.
Yes, okay, this is the actual thing. That's, like, the crux of it. Hyacinth is always supposed to grow up to be a Lady Danbury, and somehow that has not happened.
She has. She's turned into, like, a paragon who has this little quirk where she likes to search the house.
Also, like, how carefully is she bloody looking if she has to do it every couple of months over 22 freaking years and, 15 years.
Well, okay, yeah, but the reason that she's come up with nothing is not because she's not good at searching.
She's trying to be stealthy.
No, it's because Isabella took the jewels away.
No, but she didn't know about the crack before, like, Isabella was 19. So
That's a new crack.
Yeah, that's a new crack.
Okay.
That's a crack that Isabella made a year before, once she realised that she had found jewels that her mother had been looking for. Hyacinth is going to think about this for ages and be really, like, irritated with herself and wonder how she missed that in her, like, numerous times of going through that bathroom. That's bothering me at the moment, this idea that Hyacinth is going to eventually sit down and be like, how did I keep missing that?
So in the diamond parure, each of the diamonds are bracketed by aquamarine stones, which are like a pale blue, essentially, which would be set off really nicely by, say, yellow or orange or somewhere in that little side of the color wheel. It may be that Isabella unwittingly, unconsciously, for all these years, has only been gravitating towards colors where she could wear this diamond set to its best advantage.
I think you're giving Julia Quinn too much credit.
Or am I not giving her enough credit?
No.
Okay, here's a question. Here's a personal question. Because I feel like we have to have it because, it's a personal decision that every woman has to make for herself. Would you wear a matching necklace, bracelet, and ring set?
No.
Like, I
don't like bracelets. But I also have a very broad palm, so nothing gets over my knuckles, basically. So.
Oh my God, I have the same thing. Like I have very square hands.
Yeah, samesies.
But I love bracelets. I actually don't like necklaces. I find necklaces, I don't know, I can never relax into wearing a necklace.
I reckon I could rock it. I reckon I could go all three. Like special occasions.
Yeah. I like a good pair of statement earrings. I like a good bracelet. I very rarely wear necklaces, and I almost never wear rings. I wear my engagement and wedding ring, and that's about it.
I do love statement earrings, and I have quite a lot of them, but I don't wear them. I don't wear them to work because
you have to wear earphones all the time.
Yeah, I have to wear headphones that go over my ears, and so they just end up hurting.
No point. Also, like, I love statement earrings, and I also own a shit ton of them, but like, I haven't worn earrings in probably 7 months because of the same reason, is I'm always on Zoom, so no point.
Same. I actually have to set myself a periodic reminder to put earrings in so that my holes don't grow over. But yeah, same.
Is that real?
Yeah, well, yes. I don't know. I mean, it's not true for everybody.
Oh,
but it's definitely true for me. My ears, I've had one piercing since I was 13 and the other one since I was 16, and they will both heal over if I don't put earrings in every, I don't know, I think I can go like maybe 5 days before they start closing over.
That's hectic. I mean, I've definitely gone an entire year without wearing earrings at all, and I can still put them in.
Is monogamy dead? Are we expecting too much of Tinder? Do millennials even want to find love? The Dateable podcast, part of the Frolic Network, is an insider's look into modern dating that the Huffington Post calls one of the top 10 podcasts about love and sex. I'm your host, Yue Xu, former dating coach turned dating sociologist. And you'll also hear from my co-host, Julie Kravchik. On each episode, we'll talk to real daters about everything, from sex parties to sex droughts, date fails to diaper fetishes, and first moves to first loves. Ever wondered why a first date didn't turn into a second date? Check out our episode called The Exit Interview, where we helped one of our listeners get answers by calling up 5 of his recent first dates. Some other notable episodes include The Science of Dating, which uncovers the why of certain behaviors, Getting Out of the Friend Zone, which is always a hot topic, and plenty of he said, she said experiments with full-on post-date interviews. Tune in every Wednesday on your favorite podcast player as we explore this crazy dateable world.
Do you think that Hyacinth is going to wear the jewels?
I don't think it was about the jewels. I think it was just about finding the jewels.
I know it's about.
Yeah,
I know, but like now that she has them, what do you think would? What do you think she would actually do with them?
She would be wearing them because she want to tell everybody how she found them. She would want a victory lap.
And she said something along the lines of like, they could use the money, but it's not like really necessary. So maybe she could. And
the pragmatic queen in me was sell them.
Also, aren't they Gareth's mom's jewels?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they would probably want to keep them as an heirloom, surely.
They're probably gifted to Isabel.
Well, I mean, Isabella would 100% come into them.
But also, like...
Finders keepers.
Hyacinth was very adamant that she can always tell what her daughter is thinking. So when she goes to present them to Isabella, do we realistically expect that Isabella will be able to fake that she's never seen these before?
Well, surely the whole story has to come out.
Like, it must.
Mm.
Okay, so I have a question for you guys. Kate, jumping off your idea that Lady Danbury is a very different character to I'm not explaining this right, but like from that thought process of Hyacinth should have grown up to be a Danbury, but she's turned into
a Violet.
Mm-hmm. So are we to assume that the reason someone becomes a Danbury or a Violet has to do with finding romantic love?
Oh, that's an interesting thought. So there's hints that are dropped through, right? So she says that she, like in Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, Lady Danbury says that she was like Penelope once. So she was a wallflower who sort of came into her own.
Mm.
But almost all the way through It's in His Kiss, she talks about how dumb her kids are. And there's no mention of her husband at all. She doesn't wear blacks. Like, she's not dressed in black. So she's not still in mourning, which, I mean, obviously people come out of mourning, but depending on when her husband died, like, she could have made the decision to stay in mourning for longer, you know, if she was legitimately mourning or whatever.
Maybe she was so bored in her marriage and her children, she sort of had to invent games for herself and to make things interesting. So that's her. She sort of created a new personality in order to get sort of the engagement and the fulfillment she wasn't getting from her family. Maybe.
I just think it's a really interesting, probably unconscious argument that Quinn is kind of putting forth. That
No, I don't disagree.
That romantic love dulls your edges.
It'll make you more like likely to conform to to society, more willing to conform as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
It's
back in those days, there was societal, like if you didn't play the game, your husband would have had repercussions if you loved him, if he was a lord and stuff. Like, I kind of get it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but I think Rudi, I think you're right. I think that there's this idea that domestic happiness almost dulls you into conformity, because I mean, you've conformed to that idea of what, you know, the center of life should be, which is a family. You're happy with it and happy within it, so you don't feel the need to buck against the system. Which in Hyacinth's case is a bit sad, really.
Very.
Yeah. This is set in
1847.
And class is starting to change. Like, there is more people kind of rising.
We're heading into the Industrial Revolution.
Yes, that's where I'm.
North and South. Look back at me.
But yeah, so we're heading into this era where like people can like rise above their station. So the ton is starting to have to reckon with people who are not born to the peerage, but do have money, and also their own people are starting to lose money.
Yeah, well, I mean, because the Industrial Revolution sort of happened, it's sort of happening around the same time as the Regency, but by this point in time, like that sort of trade, like those trade millionaires have really come in, and the industry has taken over sort of the pastoral wealth from before. So it makes a lot of sense too. And it's interesting because Gareth refers to the money that they made through investments, through carefully investing Hyacinth's dowry. So I think that's a nod as well to the fact that there was a lot of speculation at the time and that people could make money doing that sort of thing as well. Yeah, and just to go back to Hyacinth having to sort of conform into society's expectations of her, my first thought was that, oh, well, she's had kids and she's a bit worried that, I can understand as a mom, not wanting to rock the boat because your kid might get the effects rather than you. But at the same time, by this point in time, like literally everybody in the ton is a Bridgerton or Bridgerton adjacent, surely by the sheer number of children that have been had at this point. So like, who's going to rein her in? I suppose who's going to punish her for being a little unusual, being a little bit too smart for a woman, that sort of thing.
And also, Reddy, you can tell I've done some quick Googling while we've been talking. So in 1903 is when Emmeline Pankhurst and like a bunch of other women start to get like earnestly involved in women's suffrage. This is taking place later. So close to that. Like
it could have been such an interesting historical romance if Quinn had leaned more heavily into what was happening in 1847 as opposed to sticking with the domestic bliss of what's happening inside their house.
And just kind of, the kind of those early beginnings of social change and the way that they kind of crack. Yeah.
You think of all of the characters, like Hyacinth would be the most interested in social justice and like the most engaged with what's happening in the world around her and not sort of be caught up in the whirl of gowns and balls and almacs.
And being exasperated that her daughter is going to not like the green trim. Like...
And they're well traveled as well. Oh, I went into this being very meh, and now I'm actively angry at this epilogue. Like the things that Hyacinth could have done, the person she could have been, and it's all wrapped up in finding jewelry.
Yeah.
It would have even been a bit more interesting if the jewelry had been discovered and Gareth was still struggling to keep the estate up or something. Like, like they needed the money. And then Isabel could have felt shit about the fact that she could have handed them over like 9 years prior.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I mean, I think there's some of it that was lovely. Like, I really thought, I liked this description that they talked about with Hyacinth thinking about her daughter. When she says, sometimes Hyacinth looked at her and saw the woman she'd become, and she couldn't even breathe, so powerful was the emotion squeezing across her chest. It was a love she couldn't have imagined, so fierce and so tender, and yet at the same time the girl drove her positively batty. And I thought it was really, like, it's a beautiful description of, the love that a parent has for a child. And then the last sentence just twisted on its head, and it just felt really real and very well put. So that was really lovely. But yeah, I mean, is it like Hyacinth really turned into Violet, and Isabella doesn't have really enough space to breathe to make her as interesting a character as Hyacinth was in Hyacinth's book. So it falls short in a number of ways. A, because it diminishes Hyacinth, and I think it diminishes her as a character and as somebody that we all really enjoyed reading about. It doesn't elevate Isabella to even a whole character in and of herself. She's not really given anything to work with except that she's supposed to be her mother made over. And basically Gareth is just horny all the time.
Oh, so I actually wanted to talk about the sex scene. So I definitely do read erotica that gets to the sex scenes very quickly. But, I mean, so one of my favorite of all time books, Passion, like, that has a very intense encounter in, like, the first chapter. Like, it's so intense. And it just is, but I don't know, like... So I don't know how to articulate what's missing from this, because it's possible, I guess is where I'm going with this. It's possible to have a sex scene that quickly. It just didn't work. If you think
about Hyacinth's energy level or her what she is, this whole short story or epilogue, whatever, is it's snappish, disagreeable, frenzied searching, turned on, frenzied searching. Like, she's just up there the whole time, which is kind of Hyacinth, but it's just, there's not enough, dimensions, I guess. And then Gareth is a non-event, so...
I think it's because she's sort of always reacting to somebody and is never really herself. Like, the first part of the story, she's basically just bouncing off what Isabella is giving her. Then she goes to the study where she's angry and wants to talk about something, and her husband is like, no, look, check out the look in my eye. And she's like, okay, well, fine, now I'm, taking care of what my husband wants. And then the other time she's searching based on the letter the diary, so what Gareth's mother left behind. Like, we never see Hyacinth as she is. We only ever see Hyacinth as she reacts to other people's expectations of her, I guess.
So if she had been angry or excited for her search or whatever, because clearly there's a emotional payoff for her doing it, and she was the driver of that scene, as she's got all this excitable energy or anger or whatever she needs to fuck away, that would be more interesting than him sort of cajoling her,
I know you guys listen to First Aid Kit, and there is the Jake Gyllenhaal episode. Nicole wrote what is very definitely, she wrote a drabble that lives rent-free in my head, I think about it all the time. And the reason I think about it is because there is this thing that she says about him not kissing her, because unlike so many other men who have kissed her to shut her up. And I was like, oh. And this, it's played for comedy, but Hyacinth is clearly angry, and then we never actually know why. He kisses her to shut her up. And
she's been going around taking care of her family, getting Isabella into the right dresses and trying to find the diamonds to financially support her family. And Gareth's been hanging out at his desk, wanking, essentially. And then she walks in and he's already primed, and he's just hey, I'm primed. What are you going to do about it, essentially? It's not it's not a sex scene, I think, of equals, or at least they're not being treated as equals in the sex scene. And it's one of those things where, it's fine because it's romance. So there's certain expectations that the reader comes in, we come in at a level where we already know that they're in love and that, he has proven himself worthy of her, and etc.
There's an assumed knowledge herself.
There. Yeah, exactly. And she enjoys herself. So it's, not a trial necessarily, but at the same time, it's sort of it's definitely a segue away from the reasons that she entered into a conversation with her husband and into what he wanted from her.
But then the emotional resonance does actually come when he moves the bathtub for her. That's such a gorgeous... So she's decided that she wants to search the washroom in the nursery, I think it is. Yeah, and she has decided... And in order to do that, she's going to move the tub, and the tub is way too heavy. So he helps her move it. And then they sit there and they have this gorgeous discussion about how she's really thankful that she knows he could have just bought jewels and hid them for her to find, because she realizes that this is actually probably really irritating. But she loves that he respects her enough not to have done it, even though he may have fantasized about it.
That's the one time I think where we see Gareth and Hyacinth actually come out. Like, the sex scene is generic. You know, like it could have been any couple in that scene. But that bathtub scene is very much Hyacinth and Gareth and their relationship. And that's, I mean, the emotional resonance comes because we care about their characters in that scene. We know their characters and they're acting true to form. And what is important to those characters is what's important in the scene. Whereas, you know, a little bit, what is it? It's oral sex and then fucking and then that's it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's nothing that says this has to be Gareth and Hyacinth in this scene. It could be any couple that's engaging in it.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about What the Featheringtons.
So What the Featherington, look, it's not a very deep or angry making one, but I really think that Isabella could have just fucking told her mother and said, oh, hey, look what I found, and be done with it.
Yes.
Like, I don't understand. And she's 19. Like, okay, I could understand her child logic of like, oh my God, I might get into trouble. But you're 19 by this point in time. Like, you would have got you get your brain back around that time. I really don't understand why she just couldn't have been, hey, weirdly, here's something that I found. And her mom would have been like, what? You've been hiding it all these years? I've been looking for ages. And Isabella could have been like, you didn't tell me, so I didn't know. And Hyacinth could have been like, yeah, okay, I'm still irritated that I wasted all this time, but we found the jewels, and you're right, you know, I probably could have told you, and this you would have done.
Ostensibly, wouldn't the kids have worked out she was doing something weird all these years? If she's about as Hyacinth is about as subtle as a clown car. So like the fact that she's been going all over the house searching out and being weird, they surely would have noticed that over 20 years. I mean, I get that's probably a very huge house, but like...
I also just think that children are not very good at keeping secrets.
No.
And so I'm a little bit amazed that no one has noticed that this 10-year-old child has a collection of jewels.
In the epilogue, she put it back in the wall.
That's what I thought.
So she must have gone back and taken it back out of the wall at a later time, put it in her dresser, and then moved it to wherever.
Right.
But like I get that she's moved into a dresser with a secret drawer or whatever, but I'm like, that child had a nanny, and that nanny would have been moving stuff around to put stuff away. Like, there's no way, however old she was supposed to be, managed to keep it hidden for that long.
Also, was that not the secret drawer from It's in His Kiss where the letters were hidden?
You would think that they would know. Well,
they know about that secret compartment.
Yeah. Maybe they just didn't feel the need to go looking into it.
No, they probably respected her privacy really because they're good parents.
Yeah.
Good WTF. Mine's pretty slight too, actually. Mine is apparently Isabel had a really successful first season. She's not married, so how fucking successful could it have been?
Daphne's successful. She was popular.
She was popular. Or maybe she was turning down the proposals.
That's probably what. Also, Adele, it's hard when most of the time are your cousins.
Not in Regency England or Victorian England even. That was perfectly acceptable.
True.
In fact, desirable. Keep all that money in the family.
Oh, and the gene pool.
I mean, I don't know. I only have girl cousins, so we wouldn't have been allowed to Victorian times.
I don't even want to be friends with my cousins, so we're good.
My cousins are basically non-entities, so.
I have two.
You have what?
Two. I have two cousins.
Me too, I only have two as well.
Oh my God. So I know that this number is wrong. I know it is because time has passed and children have been born. But I was one of 52 grandchildren. And then there's more now.
That is some impressive family tree branching.
Yeah.
Like, seriously impressive.
Anyway, my What the Featherington is very personal. I feel like Julia Quinn made a personal attack on me personally. Ready?
Wow.
Yep.
Perhaps that was the curse of being the youngest of 8 children. One was never quite ready to be old. Fuck you, Julia Quinn. I mean, I know I'm not the youngest of 8, but that's rude, that is.
You'll get no sympathy from me as the eldest.
I read that and I was like, what the Featherington?
Also, as the eldest, I feel like I've been old since I was 6. So, yeah.
I have your big sis exhausted energy as well.
And,
so much responsibility, so little fun.
So little fun. So much of you need to set a good example for your sisters.
I like that you don't get to do that until this age, and you would have to wait the freaking time. I didn't get to wear a watch until I was fucking 12, and my sister got hers at the same freaking time, and like all this bullshit.
Sleepover parties.
Yeah.
Didn't get to sleep over. Wait. No, hold on. They got to sleep over. Like, the thing that goes unappreciated by younger siblings for their older siblings is how lucky they had it, because I wasn't a fuck up. I was a really good kid, and as a result, all of the things that my parents were scared about didn't eventuate, and so they were like,
trust was higher. Yeah,
it's fine. We're just gonna let younger siblings do things earlier and do things bigger and whatever. And do you think that either of my sisters have ever thanked me for that? No, they have not.
Oh, even better. I had my sister when she was a teenager, so she's 2.5 years younger than me, yell at me because how dare I not do my older sister duty of breaking in my parents so she got an easier time of it. And I'm like, what? Like, I didn't do anything. So apparently that made, I think your way, like what, see, she never saw it from my point of view anyway, but I think you're right, Kate. She had it a lot easier. The stuff she got up to, Mum just implicitly trusted it.
True.
Because I had no imagination when it comes to breaking rules. I still don't. Like, it doesn't occur to me. It's not in, there's no breaking rules part of my brain. It just doesn't occur to me. Like
Sorry, were you guys saying something? Because like I've just been playing with my phone and my watch. That I got at unbearably young ages.
Oh wow. So good. Well played.
Look, I did that one I chose that one partly because I am actually sincerely incensed. I was like, I felt it. I felt it when Hyacinth said that being the youngest meant that she was never quite ready to be old. But I also knew that you guys would enjoy having some moral superiority.
Yeah, look, I have to admit that I feel a little bit better right now. Having purged myself of those long-held resentments.
If we can change the life of just one elder sibling,
it will all have been worth it.
Indeed.
Now it's time for
What Would Danbury Do?
This is where we imagine that a character from another favourite book has written to the cane-wielding fiend Lady Danbury to ask for advice. This week, our letter comes from Jonathan from One Night with a Duke by Erica Ridley. Dear Lady Danbury, I love to travel, and honestly, I make it a point to never visit the same town twice. But I've recently arrived in Crestmouth to meet my newest business investor. He's delayed because, of course. Anyway, I could have spent the time tucked away waiting for him to arrive, but where's the pleasure in that? And now I've encountered the most stunning woman I've ever seen in my life. I'm even willing to overlook the fact that she's English. But what would Danbury do?
Where is Jonathan from?
As you could tell from my accent as I read that, Jonathan is from Scotland.
Excellent Scottish accent. I was getting some real Outlander vibes from you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so is Jonathan the Duke?
He's not actually. No, it's a bizarre title because no, he's not the Duke. The Duke is the person he's waiting for.
I would say Lady Danbury would be like, this is an excellent example of, to put it crudely, shit or get off the pot. Either turn around and go back to Scotland and be grumpy and cold, or get over yourself and maybe engage the girl in some conversation and find out if, being English is the worst thing in the world.
Which we have to assume is yes.
I mean, obviously. I can completely understand where he's coming from, by the way. This whole Scottish English thing that Regency romances have, the Scots have legitimate complaints here. But, at the same time, you either have to say, okay, one way or the other. Lady Danbury would not settle for, she wouldn't take the dithering.
I have to agree with what Kate's advice is. I think Jonathan just has to remove the mallet from his ass and realize that, of course, you're not going to double down on someone you just think is attractive and is English. You actually have to get to know them and see if they're worth the effort. And hopefully in getting to know someone and treating someone as an individual as opposed to a representative of a whole nation, you might fall in love. Give it a go.
Sorry, Rudi, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the heroine in this book a woman of color?
She is. She's Black.
Maybe he could think about what they have in common, and they hate the English together. I think that, if that's not a recipe for a satisfying long-term relationship, I don't know what is.
One of the reasons that I mentioned the English thing is because when he is talking to her, when they first meet, he goes into the jewelry store that she runs, and he's he's chatting to her. She talks to him about his accent. "Your burr," she mumbled, waving a hand without meeting his eyes. "You sound Scottish." "I am Scottish," he agreed. "For better or for worse. Your accent, on the other hand, is poor indeed. You sound..." She tensed. "English," he whispered, and gave an exaggerated shudder. "I am English," she managed. "Pity," he sighed. "All jewels have their flaw, don't they?" I think you're supposed to realize it is actually kind of a compliment, because he's doing that thing where he's like, "I know other people don't recognize your personhood in this nation, but I'm going to by telling you that the Scottish-English rivalry is well and truly alive between us."
I like the, I do have to pay credit where credit is due. I like the jewel reference that just ties us so neatly back to Hyacinth. Well done.
Well played.
Yeah.
Masterfully played.
Yeah. So Angelica, the heroine of this novel, is a jewelry maker. She runs her own business in a small town in 1814 England. So that's kind of badass, and also quite a cool choice on Erica Ridley's part. And that's one thing about this is it doesn't shy away from, I guess, the potential for
the dangers she would have been living in.
So it doesn't shy away from it. It's very definitely it's discussed on the page. She doesn't actually have any encounters overt. So it's a somewhat safe read. But so it's like, it's a safe read, but one that is, I want to say cognizant. Is that the right word?
Still aware, I guess.
Yeah, so like one that's cognizant of like the realities of her position and what it would have been. Yeah, so which kind of makes it all the sweeter. It also, just as like a heads up, there's no sex scenes in this. Like,
What?
Yeah, it's very solidly a sweet romance in that there's no on the page sex. Oh, and the other reason that I chose it is because it's a Christmas-ish themed kind of,
Timely. I feel like Lady Danbury would approve very heartily of Angelica.
I think so too. Because like Angelica's like she's kind of straight-laced. She's kind of, so it is very much, she's got a plan and she's really close to achieving her goal, and having this like charming man kind of come into her life.
Walk into her life at the absolute wrong time.
Yeah, like it's somewhat disruptive, but
it sounds delightful. I love this. I love stories where you have a plan and somebody comes in that's disruptive.
So he continues to be disruptive, despite the fact she's English.
That's all for this episode of What Would Danbury Do? We'll be back very soon with a special episode where the crew go head-to-head with Sarah Wendell from Smart Bitches Trashy Books. Who will be the victor? Well, let's face it, it's probably Sarah. In the meantime, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram as @BridgertonPod, or send us an email at bridgertonpod@gmail.com. If you enjoy our podcast, please consider leaving us a rating or review at your favourite podcast provider. Naturally, we think we provide 5-star analysis and a bit of sass, but you should tell your truth. This episode was recorded on the traditional and unceded land of Gadigal, Wurundjeri and Boonwurrung people, and edited by audio producer Rudi Bremer on Gadigal country. Thanks for listening, and remember, WWDD.